we've read this paragraph last time once, but um, I think it's better if we just read it once more. Who will like to read? Four of us are there, other than me. Yogesh bhai, would you like to read?
Anmol bhai, I'm in the car. Archana ji, if you could please
Oh,
read.
Archana ji, Dhaval bhai, Jeeti, anybody? Archana ji,
Yeah, I will read
Dhaval
from
bhai?
first.
Okay, okay, Dhaval bhai.
There are certainly plenty of things in our existence which the Sankhya does not explain at all or does not explain satisfactorily. But if we all need is a rational explanation of the cosmic processes in their principles as a basis for the great object common to the ancient philosophies, the liberation of the soul from the obsession of cosmic nature, then the Sankhya explanation of the world and the Sankhya way of liberation seem as good and as effective as any other. What we do not seize at first is why it should bring in an element of pluralism into its dualism by affirming one Prakriti but many Purushas. It would seem that the existence of one Purusha and one Prakriti should be sufficient to account for the creation and procession of the universe. But the Sankhya was bound to evolve pluralism by its rigidly analytical observation of the principles of things. First, actually, we find that there are many conscious beings in the world, and each regards the same world in his own way and has his independent experience of its subjective and objective things. His separate dealings with the same perspective, perceptive, and reactive processes. If there were only one Purusha, there would not be this central independence and separativeness, but all would see the world in an identical fashion and with a common subjectivity and objectivity. Because Prakriti is one, all witness the same world. Because her principles are everywhere the same, the general principles which constitute internal and external experience are the same for all. But the infinite difference of view and outlook and attitude, action, and experience and escape from experience, it difference not of the natural operations which are the same, but of the witnessing consciousness are utterly inexplicable except on the supposition that there is a multiplicity of witnesses, many Purushas. A separative ego sense, we may say, is a sufficient explanation, but the ego sense is a common principle of nature and need not vary. For by itself, it simply induces the Purusha to identify himself with Prakriti. And if there is only one Purusha, all beings would be one, joined and alike in their egoistic consciousness. However, different in detail might be the mere forms and combinations of their natural parts. There would be no difference of soul outlook and soul experience. The variations of nature ought not to make all this central difference. This multiplicity of outlook and from beginning to end, this separateness of experience in one witness, one Purusha. Therefore, Pluralism of souls is a logical necessity to a pure Sankhya system, divorced from the Vedantic elements of the ancient knowledge, which first gave it birth. The cosmos and its processes can be explained by the commerce of one Prakriti with one Purusha, but not the multiplicity of conscious beings in the cosmos.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, even the next paragraph should be read before we go into explanation, but that might be, too much. थोड़ा लंबा भी है अगला वाला. Okay, we'll go one by one. Okay. So there are certainly plenty of things in our existence which the Sankhya does not explain at all, or does not explain satisfactorily. Okay. But if all we need is a rational explanation of the cosmic processes in their principles as a basis for the great object common to the ancient philosophies, what is that object? The liberation of the soul from the obsession of cosmic nature. Uh, yeah. Then the Sankhya explanation of the world and the Sankhya way of liberation seem as good and as effective as any other. The key word here is effective. Okay. What we do not see at first is why it should bring in an element of pluralism into its dualism by affirming one Prakriti but many Purushas. Okay. It would seem that the existence of one Purusha and one Prakriti should be sufficient to account for the creation and the procession of the universe. Procession means the process. But the Sankhya was bound to evolve pluralism by its rigidly analytical observation of the principles of things. Okay, analysis means breaking down. इसमें कुछ ज़्यादा है नहीं, is actually just building up the argument. तो अगर कोई question उठता है तो anybody can raise it, but otherwise he's basically just building the argument. Okay. First, actually, we find that there are many conscious beings in the world. Like there are how many? There are 9 conscious beings on the call right now. Let's take it that way, okay? And each regards the same world in his own way and has his independent experience of its subjective and objective things. Is it not? Everybody sees from their own perspective, their viewpoint, basically through the lens of their own personality, right? His separate dealings with the same perceptive and reactive processes. This much is obvious. If there were only one Purusha, there would not be this central independence and separativeness. But all would see the world in an identical fashion and with a common subjectivity and objectivity. Clearly. Because Prakriti is one, all witness the same world. Because her principles are everywhere the same, the general principles which constitute internal and external experience are the same for all. But the infinite difference of view and outlook and attitude, action and experience, and escape from experience, a difference not of the natural operations which are the same, but of the witnessing consciousness. Okay? क्या क्या इन्होंने बताया? Infinite difference of view, outlook, attitude, action, experience, and escape from experience. ठीक है?
Anmol bhai,
हाँ.
this subjectivity and objectivity.
Yeah.
So when in the previous paragraph, when we broke down the 14 elements, the 24 elements into 13 and 11,
Yeah.
is the objectivity the 13 which comprises us of the individual, or is the objectivity the 11 that
No,
you're
no. The
engaging?
objective is the 11. Very clearly, when we read that para regarding the 11, then it ended with the objective, and then he said 13 other principles. So the 13 are basically the subjective and the 11 are the objective.
Perfect. Thanks.
Where were we? First, actually, we find, oh no, sorry. Are utterly inexplicable here, except on the supposition that there is a multiplicity of witnesses, many Purushas. I'll just read the sentence again. Because Prakriti is one, all witness the same world. Because her principles are everywhere the same, the general principles which constitute internal and external experience are the same for all. But the infinite difference of view and outlook and attitude, action and experience and escape from experience, a difference not of the natural operations which are the same, not of the Prakriti, but of the witnessing consciousness. So all these differences are utterly inexplicable except on the supposition that there is a multiplicity of witnesses, many Purushas. Very simple. The separative ego sense, we may say, is a sufficient explanation. Okay. But the ego sense is a common principle of nature and need not vary. For by itself, it simply induces the Purusha to identify himself with Prakriti. So ego sense is just a mechanism. It does not have its own separate, identity, so to speak. It is a part of the mechanism of Prakriti, right? The ego sense, but the ego sense is a common principle of nature and need not vary. The nature of the ego basically is the same everywhere.
हाँ अनमोल भाई, तो फिर उसको सब्जेक्टिव में क्यों इंक्लूड किया गया है,
इसको
अहंकार को?
क्योंकि वो ठोस चीज नहीं है ना. ऑब्जेक्टिव और सब्जेक्टिव का सिर्फ ऑब्जेक्टिव में क्या था, पंच महाभूत एंड द
तन्मात्र,
तन्मात्र,
हाँ बराबर,
एंड वन मोर द अनमैनिफेस्ट एनर्जी, आई थिंक, है ना
हाँ
ऑब्जेक्टिव.
बराबर, हाँ
तो
पर अभी
those are
13
the
में तो
things which you can experience tangibly. Ego is not something you can experience tangibly in a sense that you can touch it or smell it that way. That is why.
हाँ so अहंकार becomes subjective, right? So then if अहंकार is subjective, तो हर एक का अलग अहंकार होगा ना, किसी का बड़ा, किसी का कम.
यहाँ पे सब्जेक्टिव ऑब्जेक्टिव उस सेंस में नहीं है. इट डज नॉट मीन ओपिनियन. आप जो सब्जेक्टिव का मतलब बता रहे हैं, दैट इज द फिलोसॉफिकल मीनिंग ऑफ द वर्ड सब्जेक्टिव, which means कि what is your opinion regarding this? This is something subjective, means I have my opinion on this, you have your opinion on this. That is subjective. यहाँ इसका वो मतलब नहीं है. यहाँ पे subjective objective से मतलब है that which is the subject of the experience and that which is the object of the experience. So it is the ahankara which experiences the tanmatras and the panch mahabhuta etc. or energy as an object. यहाँ पे उसका वो मतलब है.
ओह, सो ये सब्जेक्टिव ऑब्जेक्टिव ये वाला अलग है.
हाँ, ये ओपिनियन वाला और फैक्ट वाला नहीं है.
ओह माय गॉड,
वो
ओके.
आता इसी से है. हाँ, मेरे को पहले भी ये बोलना चाहिए था, मेरे माइंड में आया था, बट आई मिस्ड सेइंग इट. गुड
Can
दैट
you
यू
please repeat once more? I'll write it down because this is very important here. The subject object वाला बोले तो आप कैसे इसको describe करेंगे?
Very simply, see, the objective माने that which is the object of experience, and subjective माने that which is experiencing the thing. ग्रामर में नहीं होता this is the subject and this is the object. It is that grammar वाला subject and object.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
So it is the manas which is perceiving. ठीक है? Through the indriyas. So indriyas are perceiving. Step 1. They are the subject of the indriya vishaya. ठीक है? Step 2. The manas is experiencing, perceiving. Step 3. It is the ego जो उसको इफेक्ट हो रहा है. Step 4. It is the buddhi. तो ये सब डेटा को वो प्रोसेस कर रहे हैं. So they are the data processor, whereas object is the data being processed.
Okay.
Got it?
Okay, so all the data processing elements are basically
kind of
sort of
in this context,
in this paragraph at least, not the philosophical subjective objective.
नहीं, not that. वो आप उसको उससे रिलेट कर सकते हैं. थोड़ा सा सोचेंगे तो रिलेशन बन जाएगा, obviously because the same words are used, but that's okay. I mean, here it is clear enough what he's meaning. Okay.
So Anmol, could you please repeat once again which come under subjective and what comes under objective?
Objective में the 11 माने the pancha mahabhuta, the tanmatra, and I think the unmanifest energy, avyaktam, pure energy basically, which you are able to feel in some form. And जो बाकी 13 बचेंगे, बुद्धि महत, sorry, buddhi and mahat are the same.
Prakriti and the 10 I thought was the objective, na?
हाँ, प्रकृति को ही मैं अव्यक्तम बोल रहा हूँ. So
अच्छा, okay.
अव्यक्तम
Thanks.
is the undifferentiated or unmanifest form of the prakriti. सरिता,
Yes.
बाकी जो 13 है, they are the बुद्धि, the manas, the ahankara, the 5 ज्ञानेंद्रिय and the 5 कर्मेंद्रिय.
Okay. All right.
तो
Yeah.
अनमोल भाई, in that grammatical sense, जो आपने analogy दिया, data processor and the evaluation of data is done by the subject, पर data को खाली
Basically
process
the actor and the thing being acted upon. आप उसको ऐसे बोल सकते हैं. डेटा तो एक और बहुत स्थूल एग्जांपल हो गया, but
Okay.
you could simply say the actor and the thing being acted upon.
Okay. So objective is the thing being acted upon. ठीक है.
Yeah. It's clear ना, ऑब्जेक्ट जो किसी भी
हाँ.
एक्शन का जो ऑब्जेक्ट है, वेरी सिंपल.
हाँ,
सब्जेक्ट
हाँ.
माने जो एक्टर है, जो उसके ऊपर एक्ट कर रहा है, या सब्जेक्ट माने जो उस ऑब्जेक्ट
बराबर.
को अनुभव कर रहा है,
बराबर
जो
है.
उसके
बराबर.
अनुभव को ग्रहण कर रहा है.
बराबर. Makes sense.
Makes
पर
sense.
ये थोड़ा मैं पिछले वाले से बहुत कंफ्यूज हो गया. This is bit it threw me off here. Sorry here.
इस वाले से
This paragraph में subjective objective threw me off in
अच्छा,
comparison
no
with
problem, no problem.
with
Now
the
you're
other.
okay, ना?
Yeah.
So the separative sense, ego sense, we may say is a sufficient explanation, but the ego sense is a common principle of nature and need not vary. Okay, because it is simply a
अनमोल
mechanism of prakriti. हाँ, बोलिए.
अनमोल मेरे दिमाग में एक बात आ रही है. I
हम्म,
don't know whether it is relevant or not,
हम्म,
but it is coming to my mind. Theory
बोलिए.
of relativity.
हम्म.
Does this has any connection with this, what you're talking all about?
एक कनेक्शन तो हमने निकाला था इन द प्रीवियस टू प्रीवियस क्लास, आई थिंक, वेर इन वी सेड कि जो मैटर और एनर्जी का इक्विवेलेंस है, दिस वाज नोन टू सांख्या. मतलब जो सेंटेंस था, इट वाज समथिंग लाइक दिस, दैट फॉर सांख्या मैटर एंड एनर्जी आर वन एंड द सेम थिंग. So we said that this is known to Sankhya thousands of years ago, whereas in modern physics, it has only come to be known through Einstein's equation in the, I think, 1905 या कभी तो, जब वो theory of relativity publish हुआ था, E is equal to mc square. एक कनेक्शन तो वो था. ठीक है. बाकी बाकी और as such कोई और obvious कनेक्शन तो निकल के नहीं आया है. Yeah.
But okay, but
हाँ.
somehow this is all मेरे दिमाग में ये आ रहा है. And
Yeah,
while you're
relativity,
talking all
see,
this, it
relativity
is
in that sense, theory of relativity in that sense, कि whatever may be the object being experienced, ठीक है? The experience will be relative to the person who is experiencing it. So it
because
will
of
not be the same for anybody.
yes, because of the difference that you just mentioned, you know,
Yes.
what you call
Because all the Purushas are distinct, na?
yeah,
It is the
yeah,
one
yeah,
Purusha, but that
yeah,
one Purusha has assumed different poises.
yeah,
मैंने
because
श्योमितो का
of
एक
that
sentence
reason.
quote किया था last time. Yeah.
Hmm.
From the one-page essay called Moksha. It is as if the same actor could play multiple roles, not in succession, but at one and the same moment. So the the actor is the same, but he is playing Anmol through me, GT through you, Dhaval through him, Sarita through her, like that. Actor is the same, but yet it is different because वो different roles play कर रहा है. This is the different poises which the same Purusha has assumed. This is the Vedantic theory. Okay, so we'll move on. Yeah.
Thank you, lovely.
Most problem. No problem. For by itself, it simply induces the Purusha to identify himself with Prakriti. And if there is only one Purusha, all beings would be one. Very simple. Joined and alike in their egoistic consciousness. However different in detail might be the mere forms and combinations of their natural parts, there would be no difference of soul outlook and soul experience.
There will be homogeneity in everything.
Homogeneity, exactly.
Yeah.
अगले वाले में वो एक और बहुत स्टैगरिंग चीज बोलेंगे, बिल्कुल एकदम दिमाग खुल जाएगा उसको पढ़ के, कह रहे भाई क्या बोल रहे हैं. We'll come to the variations of nature ought not to make all this central difference. The multiplicity of outlook and from beginning to end, this separateness of experience in one witness, one Purusha. Because the Purusha is the same, ना? तो नेचर के वेरिएशंस चाहे जितने भी हों, बट क्योंकि एक्सपीरियंस आर सेम है, therefore the experience will be same for everybody, right? Therefore, the pluralism of souls is a logical necessity to a pure Sankhya. Pure Sankhya माने that which is analytical. Pure Sankhya माने that process which is analytical, जो enumerate कर रहा है, जो analyze कर रहा है, जो cut कर रहा है, जो numbers में divide करके समझने की कोशिश कर रहा है, like that. Okay.
That would it be right then, Anmol Bhai, to say
Hmm.
that where the pluralism of the souls is there, this refers to the Purusha at individual consciousness, as Purusha as individual consciousness level.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The cosmos and its process can be explained by the commerce of one Prakriti with one Purusha. Yeah. So sometimes like एक जगह आता है word Vaishvanara, literally meaning the universal male. उसको English में बोलेंगे cosmic being. Okay. Or if you want to say, you can say cosmic Purusha. तो उस level पे तो one can do. The cosmos and its process can be explained by the commerce of one Prakriti with one Purusha, but not the multiplicity of conscious beings in the cosmos. उससे नहीं.
Yeah, but then Anmol Bhai, sorry, I have one more question. He's saying this is divorced from Vedantic elements. Vedant में तो one Purusha, one Prakriti ही है.
एक second. Therefore, the pluralism of souls is a logical necessity to a pure Sankhya system divorced from the Vedantic elements of the ancient knowledge, which first gave it birth. हाँ, वेदांत में है, हाँ.
मतलब everything is synthesized as we earlier studied under one Brahman, correct?
Yeah.
Now the question is, in the Vedanta we have Vedas we have Ekoham Bahushyam, I become many.
Yeah.
So there the Vedanta explains the multiplicity in that sense, right? Because we
Yeah.
have studied
Correct.
that
Correct.
for each individual we have a Adhyaksha of Jivatman, right? So okay, so but this is missing in the Sankhya system, and
this unity is missing.
This unity is missing.
Ekoham is missing. That Ekoham Bahusyama, I am one. Ekoham Bahusyama, may I be many. So that Eka part is missing.
इसीलिए ये dualistic system है.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, उसमें Ekoham Bahusyama में तो simply पुरुष का हुआ. Even the union of Purusha and Prakriti, कि पुरुष और प्रकृति अलग नहीं है. They are one only. Both the things.
And this pluralism from this what you call Prakriti is also derived from ego. As I remember Anjali explaining, ego is the biggest hurdle and ego is the biggest supporter. She has her own way of saying it, I don't know.
No, couple of things. What you are saying, you are quoting from an aphorism of Sri Aurobindo.
Yeah.
Ego is the helper, ego
and
is the
ego is
bar.
the, yeah.
That उसका simple meaning ये है कि according to the stage of development of the individual, okay, either taken as a whole along all the births, ठीक है, या फिर taken in this birth itself that way, ठीक है. So for the development of the individuality, ego is necessary. First of all, आपको संगठित करना है ना. You have to become an individual, and only then you can surrender that individual or offer that individuality to the Supreme. So ego is the mechanism by which the individualization happens. Otherwise, you will be simply a flux of movements. आपका खुद का कोई वो ही नहीं है ना, कोई anchor point ही नहीं है. So in that stage, ego is necessary. But once that individuality is sufficiently and clearly and distinctly formed, then obviously, then basically if that sense of separateness is asserted too much, then that will lead to conflict. Okay. So in the next step, you have to realize that yes, I am a distinct personality and individual, and I have my own, individuality, but yet I am one with everybody else. Then that second step, ego is the bar. That is when ego becomes the bar. When the need comes for, you could say collective harmony in that sense. एक तो ये है. तो दूसरा पॉइंट आप बोल रही हैं कि ईगो की वजह से वो डिस्टिंक्टनेस वगैरह होता है. I mean, it's the same thing. But here he's saying that the real distinction happens because of the distinct Purusha. Because ego is simply a mechanism of nature, and as he said earlier, कहाँ गया वो sentence? By itself, but ego is a common principle of nature and need not vary. Ego is just a principle of nature. It's a mechanism. It is belonging to Prakriti. उसके अंदर वो by itself, ego is not having any individuality. It is simply a mechanism. ये समझने वाली बात.
Okay.
Next.
Anmol Bhai, before we proceed, I would just like to just summarize all that we read in few words, and you please validate that.
Okay.
So, first of all, it is positing two elements, Purusha and Prakriti.
Ah.
Purusha can be only applied at an individual level, not at a cosmic level, not cosmic
No, it
consciousness.
can be also. It is
No,
called
but in
Akshara Purusha then.
no, but in case of Sankhya, in case
हाँ
of
हाँ
in,
okay.
see, as far as the Sankhya
Sankhya
system,
में अक्षर अक्षर का distinction नहीं है.
there is no, so that
That
means
is there in the Gita.
So that means Sankhya is limiting itself to individual consciousness and does not take into account cosmic consciousness, nor takes into account transcendental consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the Prakriti which it mentions is actually the Apara Prakriti. It is not really the
There is only one word in Sankhya. The word is Prakriti. It is Gita which further classifies it into two parts, calling it Para and Apara.
Okay.
Similarly, the one word Purusha is divided by the Gita into three words: Uttama Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and Kshara Purusha. Sankhya mein keval the words that are there are Purusha and Prakriti.
Okay, so then, but Prakriti of Sankhya, I mean qualify by that, saying that it's Prakriti of Sankhya means Apara Prakriti of Gita.
Yeah, you can say that.
And it is the same thing, the three gunas and all. So there is no change there.
Yeah.
Which Gita simply takes it further for its own synthesis, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is no such thing like Para Prakriti. There is no such thing like.
See, we have taken a very cursory look at Sankhya also. Sri Aurobindo is not going into a very deep analysis of Sankhya here. So based on what we have read, हाँ बोलिए.
हाँ मैं वही based on what we have read ही बोल रहा हूँ. I'm not because I have not done a detailed study or anything, but
neither have I.
So it's very difficult to compare and contrast like
exactly.
Because it's a big. I checked the Sankhya Karika. It's very deep and it's
Let's move ahead, Dhaval bhai. We are language. आप कुछ बोलना है, कुछ question है तो बोलिए.
No, I just wanted to summarize. That's what maps to what. That's all. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No problem. Okay. Archana ji, would you like to read the next paragraph? If she is there.
Yeah, I'll read.
Please read, ma'am.
There is another difficulty quite as formidable. Liberation is the object set before itself by this philosophy, as by others. This liberation is effected, we have said, by the Purusha's withdrawal of his consent from the activities of the Prakriti, which he conducts only for his pleasure. But in sum, this is only a way of speaking. The Purusha is passive, and the act of giving or withdrawing consent cannot really belong to it, but must be a movement in Prakriti itself. If we consider, we shall see that it is, so far as it is an operation, a movement of reversal or recoil in the principle of buddhi, the discriminative will. Buddhi has been lending itself to the perceptions of the mind sense. It has been busy discriminating and coordinating the operations of the cosmic energy, and by the aid of the ego sense, identifying the witness with her works of thought, sense, and action. It arises by the process of discriminating things at the acid and dissolvent realization that this identity is a delusion. It discriminates finally the Purusha from Prakriti and perceives that all is mere disturbance of the equilibrium of the gunas. The buddhi, at once intelligence and will, recoils from the falsehood which it has been supporting, and the Purusha, ceasing to be bound, no longer associates himself with the interest of the mind in the cosmic plane. The ultimate result will be that Prakriti will lose her power to reflect herself in the Purusha, for the effect of the ego sense is destroyed, and the intelligent will, becoming indifferent, ceases to be the means of her sanction. Necessarily then, her gunas must fall into a state of equilibrium. The cosmic play must cease. The Purusha return to his immobile repose. But if there were only the the one Purusha, and this recoil of the discriminating principle from its delusions took place, all cosmos would cease. As it is, we see that nothing of the kind happens. A few beings among innumerable millions attain to liberation or move towards it. The rest are in no way affected, nor is cosmic nature in her play with them with wit inconvenienced by this summary rejection, which should be the end of all her processes. Only by the theory of many independent Purushas can this fact be explained. The only at all logical explanation from the point of view of Vedantic monism is that of the Mayavada.
Mayavada.
But there the whole thing becomes a dream, both bondage and liberation are circumstances of the unreality, the empirical blunderings of Maya. In reality, there is none freed, none bound. The more realistic Sankhya view of things does not admit this phantasmagoric idea of existence and therefore cannot adopt this solution. Here too we see that the multiplicity of souls is an inevitable conclusion from the data of the Sankhya analysis of existence.
Right. Thank you. So the same point, multiplicity of souls, its inevitability, that he's explaining here by a very, very stark example. There is another difficulty quite as formidable. Liberation is the object set before itself by this philosophy as by others. This liberation is effected, we have said, by the Purusha's withdrawal of his consent from the activities of Prakriti, which he conducts only for his pleasure. But in sum, this is only a way of speaking. Why? Because the Purusha is passive, and the act of giving or withdrawing consent cannot really belong to it, but must be a movement in Prakriti itself. So far, we had been, following this line, ke Purusha is the one. Now he's explaining it, how it actually happens. If we consider, we shall see that it is, so far as it is an operation, a movement of reversal or recoil in the principle of buddhi, the discriminative will. So in this thing, जैसे वो evolution पूरा होता है प्रकृति में, so there is buddhi and there is ahankara, then there is manas, and then वो आगे आएगा actually इसी chapter में, I think इसी chapter में वो आएगा, properly explain करेंगे वो. Recoil in the principle of buddhi, the discriminative will. Buddhi has been lending itself to the perceptions of the mind sense. Mind sense माने manas. It's also called sense mind, ulta karke. It has been busy discriminating and coordinating the operations of the cosmic energy, and by the aid of the ego sense, right? By the aid of the ego sense, because how does the Purusha get induced to identify himself with the Prakriti? That mechanism which induces the Purusha to identify himself with the Prakriti is the ego sense, the ahankar. Okay, aham bolte hain. Yeah, and by the aid of the ego sense, identifying the witness with her works of thought, sense, and action. So either the works of the buddhi proper, thought, or of the sense से यहाँ मतलब होगा the jnanendriyas, or action, that is the karmendriyas. Okay. It arrives by the process of discriminating things at the acid and dissolvent realization. Acid का मतलब है यहाँ पे sharp, cutting. यहाँ वो chemistry वाला acid नहीं है. Here it means sharp, cutting, that way. Acerbic, जैसे word होता है ACERBIC. That's an acerbic remark, sharp remark, that way. At the acid and dissolvent realization that this identity is a delusion. Very powerful. It discriminates finally the Purusha from Prakriti and perceives that all is mere disturbance of the equilibrium of the gunas. In the Bhagavad Gita, more than once this kind of quarter of a verse comes. Guna guneshu vartante. Okay, it is the gunas which are moving in the gunas, like that. Guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sanjitah, something like this. Okay, it realizes that it is the gunas playing upon each other and thinking thus, realizing thus, it stops getting attached to the play of the gunas or all the actions of Prakriti. And even though everything is happening, even though all the, touching, smelling, all those things are going on, kurvan napi na lipyate, ये भी गीता में आता है कि doing, all this is happening, kurvan napi, even though it is doing, na lipyate, it is not tainted by it is not colored by the actions of Prakriti, right? एक वो जो 3.27 बार just one second.
Yeah.
एक that 3.27 which we had been referring pretty much every time, कि प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ता अहम इति मन्यते. Because of ahankar, deluded by the sense, deluded by the wrong idea that I am the doer. ठीक है, अहंकार कर्ता अहम इति मन्यते. And you come to the realization सारा प्रकृति के अंदर अपने आप हो रहा है. गुणा गुणेषु वर्तन्ते. वो मेरे को I'll place the shlokas later on. But is this much clear जो मैंने अभी तक बोला? I guess so. Yeah. Yogesh ji, tell me.
Yeah. Anmol bhai, this point where he's saying that through the intellect, the understanding that all of this is a play and therefore a sharp, it's like a digital 0-1 clarity that I am the Purusha, unnecessarily engaging with Prakriti, it dissolves, right? This is what it's saying. But the big piece is, if you see,
so that,
and I think
just
it's important.
One small thing.
Yeah.
It will start like this कि unnecessarily मैं इसका अपने ऊपर अध्यारोप करके परेशान हो रहा हूं. ठीक है? That is only the initial अध्यारोप माने superimposition. The proper yogic word is अध्यारोप. That's why I used it. But as it will progress, it will realize कि अरे I did it for my own delight. Otherwise, God is a fool or what? I mean, the soul is an idiot or what? Why to have all this play of nature only to realize that मैं तो खामखा अपने आप को परेशान कर रहा था? No, it's not like that. It is for delight. तो ये delight वाला point याद रखना चाहिए. Otherwise, we end up with those pessimistic philosophies of Mayavad and Buddhism.
So this 3.27, Anmol bhai, if you could just translate that and explain, because it's coming, if you could just explain that, and then I think I'll pose the question. If you could just elaborate 3.27.
I'll open it on this thing. Explain उसमें कुछ खास नहीं है, but okay. 1 minute. Is it visible? Yogesh ji?
Yeah, it's visible.
प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ताहम इति मन्यते. Okay, what is the translation? While the actions are being entirely done by the modes of nature, he whose self is bewildered by egoism thinks that it is his I which is doing them.
Right. So, Anmol bhai, if I was a newborn baby on this call, I would have been only a witnessing consciousness, not understanding there is no ego now. And I would have seen that there is one, because for me, this distinguishing that there is 7, 8 other people, there's an Anmol bhai, I don't have that capability. Yeah. So for me, it's just conversation, multiple people talking, and that's when you realize that it is the subject which is making the object be the distinguishing factor. If I was not Yogesh,
because the subject right now which you are saying, it is in it itself is subject to the principle of egoism. That is why.
Correct. So what I'm saying is that the moment you realize that actually this play is happening, it's only when I see there is a perceiver and a perceived, a subject and an object, is when I'm engaging, and all my thoughts that I am Yogesh, all of this begins because of this relationship between subject and object. The moment through the intellect, which is exactly what it's saying, The
Yes.
moment you pay attention and you say, it is this link which distinguishes me from everything else,
Yes.
makes it a subject and me an object, the moment
Yes.
I don't, then it's a play of Prakriti and
Yes.
I am the Purusha.
You are the
Why
Purusha.
am I engaging?
And
Because I feel myself to be a
and
separate
once
entity.
you start
engaging.
recovering that consciousness of Purusha, in proportion to how much you have recovered that consciousness of Purusha, you will start recovering that sense of oneness.
Right? And that stillness that you talk about was always there. It is
Yes.
just that you never perceived it or attended to
Yes.
it because your
Correct.
mind is always controlled.
Correct.
So the
Correct.
intellect is such a beautiful and powerful tool
Yes. Yes.
available to us in
Yes.
1
That is
second.
why.
In
That
a
is why.
flash, you can go into being the
Yes.
Purusha. If you
That
just
makes me.
understood this point.
Exactly. That gives me an opportunity to share something very beautiful. Okay, in the Rig Veda, for example, okay, the maximum number of verses are for Indra. Next comes Agni. Why for Indra? Because it is the intelligent mind which needs to be first enlightened and developed and all that. It is that which is going to free you, that buddhi thing. इसलिए I'll share the exact sentence वो hymns to the mystic fire में एक जगह पे. That is why the maximum number of verses in the Rig Veda are for Indra. Vishnu is superior to Indra. Vishnu is cosmic consciousness. But if you are straight away going to address cosmic consciousness, it is not going to be help you. It's not going to be practical. First of all, the intelligent mind has to be, nourished. That is why we are reading this book. ताकि हमारी बुद्धि जो है वो और stimulate हो और वो और awakened, enlightened हो, so that it can free us from the movements of Prakriti. Is it
Right.
clear
And
what I'm saying?
therefore,
Yeah.
and therefore, what he's saying till now, what I've understood is that if you are the intellect which has been now illuminated by the Purusha,
Yeah.
the Purusha is still a witnessing consciousness. So how can he be engaging with Prakriti? Because he is just a witness. He's just
Yeah.
an enabler of
Yeah,
consciousness.
that's
Correct.
exactly
And
my
therefore, he's saying
yeah.
that, look, at the end of the day, how can you identify the capability of intellect, which is Jad, which is Prakriti? It is that which is illuminating, and therefore, the realization that
Wow.
I am the Purusha is something which is being catalyzed by the intellect,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is still Prakriti.
Yeah.
So, but then
Yeah.
how do you consider buddhi as prakriti then? It should be exempted, no?
No, buddhi is part of the Prakriti.
No, correct. But if buddhi can do so much of the work, my question is this: it has to be excluded. It is conscious element, no?
No, it is not. It is deriving its consciousness. That's the play. Then you can say कि ultimately it is also deriving that consciousness from the Purusha, जिसके अंदर ये light है, ठीक है? But वो active नहीं है. It is having the consciousness. It is not having the force. If you split that word Chit Shakti into two ना, तो Purusha is simply the Chit, whereas Prakriti is the Shakti. तो उसके अंदर active ability नहीं है. उसके अंदर light है. और वो that light is being given to the buddhi and the buddhi is acting and turning upon itself, like that you can say.
ये थोड़ा ठीक है पर
I'll tell you why, Anmol
And that's
bhai.
the only explanation or conclusion that we can come to based on what we have read.
Yeah,
Correct,
because the
correct, correct.
slides that I was reviewing of Dhaval Bhai, it says that intent is the capability of the Purusha
Chalo.
or the soul.
Okay, yeah. Shall we come
that
back to the
means it
text
is
which we are reading?
I'm saying the intent,
हाँ.
that means he's also saying here that the only activity that can be done by the Purusha is illumination through the Prakriti element of Buddhi. It
Yeah.
cannot, that's why it's saying it's a mechanical putting the light and illumination, or being the Anumanta, he calls it as a mechanical because he's saying that this realization
He
can
is here, it's not the complete knowledge he has not already given. He's building the argument. He's explaining how the Sankhya explains things. Okay, there's more to come. So what I am simply saying is, if we read more, we will get more clarity.
No, I think, okay, I'll rephrase my question.
Okay.
Throughout the text, in the previous paragraphs, it says the Purusha's capability of being an Anumanta is mechanical. See, no word can be used by Shri Aurobindo.
Yeah.
So the reason he's saying it's mechanical is the explanation that you've given just now,
Yeah.
because it's saying that the
It is inactive.
illumination of knowing also that I am
Yes.
Purusha is
Yes.
happening because of Buddhi, which
Yes.
is Jad, and therefore it's a mechanical activity because
Yes.
the Purusha is only illumination. It cannot do that. It's illuminating the Prakriti element of the intellect, of the Buddhi, to do this capability and become self-realized of the Purusha. Therefore, it is mechanical, is my understanding.
Yeah, correct. But then that witnessing or Anumanta is not the only thing, na? उसमें
I
भी
know, I
और
know.
steps
But I'm
होते
saying
हैं. हाँ,
the
correct,
build-up that he's given
correct,
till
correct,
now, I was
correct,
always
correct,
thinking, my
correct.
query was, Anmol Bhai, why is he saying mechanical? How can you be a
Mechanical
illuminating
because
force? Because
हाँ,
now he's saying it is illuminating the buddhi to identify that I should do this operation, which is mechanical because it is part of prakriti and therefore mechanical. Correct?
yes.
Right, right. That's it.
But
Thanks.
again, when you say that mechanicalness, okay, it is not completely mechanical. There is something conscious within everybody. अगर मतलब इस कॉल में जो लोग हैं, we are not talking about general people that way, but obviously the consciousness or that why basically that ability to be conscious about oneself, to think where I am going, where my evolution is heading, etc., etc. It's obvious that there is that consciousness. It has awakened sufficiently. That is why we are engaging in such a text, is it not? And
Yeah, but
naturally
this
वही जो consciousness inherent है हमारे अंदर, वही हमारी बुद्धि को प्रेरित कर रही है या जो भी हो रहा है बेसिकली to recover back that liberated poise.
right, but as you said, Inder, which is the controller of the mind, it is the mind which has got illuminated with this
Exactly,
conversation, which is
exactly,
making one realize
exactly.
that if I am not the
इस
subject,
book का yes,
then the
correct,
object has no relevance
correct,
to me. The
correct. So
object-subject play,
correct,
Anmol Bhai, the object-subject play is the reason the ego is creating this object. If I was a baby, I would not be creating any impression. I would just be a witnessing consciousness. I was born like that, right?
correct,
The
correct.
moment you even understand this understanding is happening in the intellect, you immediately say, but why? My God, it's a play. I should focus on my real consciousness, which is the Purusha. You straight away cut the bonds because you feel that it's the same me who was born. It's the same me after half a stage of life who's on this call. I wish I had this conversation 30 years back. If I was a kid in school, I would have figured it out 20, 30, 40. I mean, can you imagine? It
Yeah.
shocks you that
Yeah,
nobody
yeah.
tells you this, but it is so simple.
Yeah, correct. And that is because the Indian education systems, they were systematically removed from the Indian philosophy ideas. They were systematically removed from the Indian education system post 1835 with Macaulay's coming. That's what all the, I mean, historians of education say. So yeah, correct.
Perfect. Thanks.
No problem. Okay, there is another difficulty quite as formidable. Liberation is the object set before itself. Kalpana, she has raised her hand. Does she have a question? दिख रहा है काफी टाइम से, या is it just like that? By mistake? By mistake only. Okay.
By mistake, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Liberation is the object set before itself by this philosophy as by others. The liberation is effected, we have said, by the Purusha's withdrawal of his consent from the activities of Prakriti, which he conducts only for his pleasure. But in sum, this is only a way of speaking. The Purusha is passive, and the act of giving or withdrawing consent cannot really belong to it, but must be a movement in Prakriti itself. If we consider, we shall see that it is, so far as it is an operation, a movement of reversal or recoil in the principle of buddhi, the discriminative will. Buddhi has been lending itself to the perceptions of the mind sense. It has been busy discriminating and coordinating the operations of the cosmic energy, and the aid of the ego sense, and by the aid of the ego sense, identifying the witness with her works of thought, sense, and action. It arrives by the process of discriminating things at the acid and dissolvent realization that this identity is a delusion. It discriminates finally the Purusha from Prakriti. Okay, GT has to leave. Okay. 1 minute, sorry. It discriminates finally the Purusha from Prakriti and perceives that all is mere disturbance of the equilibrium of the gunas, the buddhi, at once intelligence and will, recoils from the falsehood which it has been supporting, and the Purusha, ceasing to be bound, no longer associates himself with the interest of the mind in the cosmic play. Right. One sentence which was coming to my mind. So, like if you want to summarize what objectives are there of reading this book, two chief objectives could be said to be there. One is awakening the buddhi to, by getting that clarity, by filling it with the spiritual light, awakening that buddhi, that intelligent mind, usko nourish karke, वही जो इंद्र है हमारे अंदर, like that. Second would be the increase of bhakti, the increase of the sense of that divine within us. Just like that. These two are coming, so I better say it. The ultimate result will be that Prakriti will lose her power to reflect herself in the Purusha. For the effect of the ego sense is destroyed and the intelligent will becoming indifferent. Why has it become indifferent? जैसे पहले sentence आया था, it has recognized kind of the falsehood in it. वही the mechanicalness in it. Basically, it's not going anywhere. वो बस rigmarole चल रहा है. All that sort of thing.
अनमोल भाई, एक
हाँ.
क्वेश्चन, ये रिफ्लेक्शन बिजनेस जो है ना, मुझे बहुत आर्टिफिशियल लग रहा है. आई कैन नॉट ग्रास्प दिस प्रॉपर्ली. ये काय
क्या
का
artificial लग
रिफ्लेक्शन,
रहा है?
ये रिफ्लेक्शन बिजनेस जो कॉन्सेप्ट जो सांख्य का है, दिस एंटायर रिफ्लेक्शन बिजनेस ऑफ
हाँ तो ठीक है,
अध्यारोप.
आपको ग्रास्प करने, अभी तो ये जस्ट स्टडीइंग द बेसिक्स. सांख्य
हाँ
ऐसे बोलता है ना,
हाँ,
बट
वही
इट्स
बोल
नॉट
रहा
लाइक
हूँ.
वी हैव कंक्लूडेड आवर स्टडी.
नहीं 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 नहीं, इट इज वेरी आर्टिफिशियल. आई एम सेइंग
ओके.
बहुत बहुत not like what we see in the way we have been studying so far, no?
राइट.
वो जो one becoming many, and it's very logical जो
Right.
हमने पढ़ा वो जीवात्मन वाला, ये
Right.
पूरा आर्टिफिशियल लग रहा है. I don't know, to me this is what I am feeling.
Okay. For the effect of the ego sense is destroyed and the intelligent will becoming indifferent ceases to be the means for her sanction. Necessarily then her gunas must fall into a state of equilibrium. See, while we are reading this text, the mantric power of this text, it can simply set the gunas within us into a state of equilibrium. That is the real purpose or use behind reading these texts. वो experience होना शुरू हो जाए. Some glimpse of that should start happening. Okay? Necessarily then her gunas must fall into a state of equilibrium. The cosmic play must cease. The Purusha return to his immobile repose. But if there were only the one Purusha, and this recoil of the discriminating principle from its delusions took place, all cosmos would cease naturally. As it is, we see that nothing of the kind happens. A few beings among innumerable millions attain to liberation or move towards it. There is a verse in the Gita to this effect in the 7th chapter. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchit yatati siddhaye. Siddhi means perfection. There the word that is used is perfection, not liberation, but same idea. Manushyanam sahasreshu kashchit yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kashchin mam vetti tatvatah. I think it is 7.7. Okay, among thousands of men, one here and there he strives after perfection, and those that strive, among them, among thousands of them, one here and there, he actually knows me in my true principles. Okay, so as it is, we see that nothing of the kind happens. A few beings among innumerable millions attain to liberation or move towards it. The rest are in no way affected, nor is cosmic nature in her play with them one whit inconvenienced by this summary rejection, which should be the end of all her processes. It just goes on in its merry ways. Only by the theory of many independent Purushas can this fact be explained. There is a slight correction here. I'll just read this, and the correction means the corrective idea. It is there in the Life Divine. If time will be there, I'll read it today itself in the session. The only at all logical explanation from the point of view of Vedantic monism, once again, is that of the Mayavada. 1 minute. Yeah. The only at all logical explanation from the point of view of Vedantic monism is that of the Mayavada. but there the whole thing becomes a dream. Both bondage and liberation are circumstances of the unreality, because both bondage and liberation are part of Maya. When you are in Maya, you think that you are bound. Okay. And because you think you are bound, therefore you strive for liberation and you get liberated. But when you get liberated, you realize that there was no such thing as Maya in the first place. Maya was just a dream. So the empirical blunderings of Maya. What would be the meaning of the word empirical here? 1 minute. Empirical का मतलब ऐसे तो होता है that which is based on data. That is what it means. Depending on trial or experiment, known or knowing only by experience. Okay. In reality, there is none freed, none bound. The more realistic Sankhya view of things does not admit this phantasmagoric idea. Phantasmagoric is phantasmagoric. 1 second. Goric. A fantastic dreamlike series of elusive images or real forms. From the Greek word phantasma, meaning an appearance. Phantom nahi aata tha, bhoot, appearance, that way. Sankhya view of things does not admit this phantasmagoric idea of existence and therefore cannot adopt this solution. Here too we see that the multiplicity of souls is an inevitable conclusion from the data of the Sankhya analysis of existence. Basically, in the 2 paragraphs, he is asserting the necessity of the multiplicity of souls in the Sankhya philosophy.
Anmol bhai, this monoism where he says all of this is a dream, if you see the moment everything is appearing in consciousness in the Purusha, so monoism saying is by not engaging with you, and it continues the explanation that the play of the Prakriti is continuing, which according to Sankhya should have stopped. So he's saying there they explain it by saying, look, it's a play and it is like a dream. So the actual Purusha is seeing these images go through and flitting through and engaging as a conscious witness, seeing it as a dream. And that is their interpretation, which is what he said just now, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Which again is not the reality, which is where Sri Aurobindo will give us more light. But the monoism explaining this is that these are just images appearing in the consciousness, and
According
therefore
to
it is like a
monism,
dream.
nahi, हाँ, so according to monism, the whole thing becomes a dream. Mane ye hai hi nahi, because when you wake up, then you realize that that was just a dream. That was not a reality in that sense. So whilst you are in the dream, you are feeling that you are bound. Okay. And because you are bound, so you feel that I have to make an effort to get liberated. But you wake up and you, oh my God, there was no reality to that. That is the Mayavadic theory.
Right.
The world
Thanks.
itself
Yeah,
is
this
a
makes
dream.
sense.
The world is not real. It's not there at all.
Correct.
उसमें फिर वो उसको थोड़ा सा एक relative reality देते हैं, and that there is say कि there is a व्यावहारिक सत्य and there is a पारमार्थिक सत्य. So from the व्यावहारिक point of view, from the point of view of relativity or engaging with the world, etc., it has an existence and a reality. But from the पारमार्थिक point of view, from the आध्यात्मिक और supreme point of view, it has no reality. वो थोड़ा सा उसको वहां पे मतलब लीवे दे देते हैं. But fundamentally, मायावाद does not believe that the world exists. वो दुनिया है ही नहीं. मतलब you and I are not there. We are just a dream.
So in Shri Aurobindo explained, he started these 2 paragraphs that we read. If you see, he started by saying to understand that the Purusha is the enabler. This logic or whatever these Sankhya explanations are being given is absolutely fine to at least know the reality that you are not the Maya aspect of it. You are not the Jad aspect, but you are the Purusha. So that he said, though it's got limitations, but that is as good as any other path to make you realize and awaken to the fact that you are Purusha.
Yes, correct. So the part which I was saying कि correction from the life divine के वो पुरुषा के liberation से क्या effect पड़ता है, may I just read that? It'll take 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, please read.
1 second. Because there he says something which gives us a lot of hope and I mean a lot of shraddha in higher beings and all that. 1 minute. The destiny of the individual. Okay. Liberation. So, matlab, to be fair, I should ask somebody to read this paragraph. Who would like to read? Please mute yourself, Kalpana Ben, I think it is. Sarita, would you just like to read this paragraph?
Sure. Yeah, I'll do it.
The liberation of the individual. Ye wala.
The liberation of the individual soul is therefore the keynote of the definitive divine action. It is the primary divine necessity and the pivot on which all else turns. It is the point of light at which the intended complete self-manifestation in the many begins to emerge. But the liberated soul extends its perception of unity horizontally as well as vertically.
Yes.
Its unity with the transcendent one is incomplete without its unity with the cosmic many. And the lateral unity translates itself by a multiplication, a reproduction of its own liberated state at other points in the multiplicity. The divine soul reproduces itself in similar liberated souls as the animal reproduces itself in similar bodies. Therefore, whenever even a single soul is liberated, there is a tendency to an extension and even to an outburst of the same divine self consciousness in other individual souls of our terrestrial humanity, and who knows, perhaps even beyond the terrestrial consciousness. Where shall we fix the limit of that extension? Is it altogether a legend which says of the Buddha that as he stood on the threshold of nirvana, of the non being, his soul turned back and took the vow never to make the irrevocable crossing as so long as there was a single being upon earth, undelivered from the knot of the suffering, from the bondage of the ego.
Yes. So, well, here basically the other side of this is the more complete and correct idea that it does make a difference. Like, for example, when Buddha was there, he attained enlightenment. Then he goes to Sarnath, and initially I think there are only 4 people or something. But uska jo ripple effect hota hai, so many people get liberated because he got liberated, right? Every time there is a genuinely liberated person, then whoever comes close to him, okay, जो disciples बन जाते हैं या like that. Now, for that matter, we are reading Sri Aurobindo's book. Obviously, he has attained liberation before he has written this book. It is having so much Shakti. It can, if not ekdam se instantaneous liberation, certainly whenever you read it, it can make you feel that joy which is not there ordinarily, or some kind of freedom. It can even give you. I have met people जिनको experience हो गया. They just read one page of Sri Aurobindo and something happened, and I mean the direction of their life changed completely. Even myself, I can say, Letters on Yoga I had read first time in 2007. It had a very powerful effect, a very liberating effect. Not total liberation, obviously. Uske liye you need personal sadhana. But, the point which he's making here. Therein comes the element of grace of the great divine beings. And, that is why one makes somebody a guru. That is why somebody wants to go and have the darshan of a Mahatma. It is for this reason. उनके वो जो sort of उनका जो वो क्या बोलना चाहिए देयर जो उनके ऑरा के फिजिकल पार्टिकल्स हैं, परमाणु हैं, जो भी हैं, they help you. And like that, coming in contact with the consciousness of a liberated person, it can liberate you. This is what he's saying here. तो वो उस वाले में जो कहा था कि अगर एक लिबरेट हो गया तो of course the two ideas are not contradictory. Merely by reading Sri Aurobindo, you will not attain Parabrahman once and for all. But you might get a glimpse of it. And your journey towards it might start in full earnest.
Anmol bhai, this line that he's explaining, if you could just clarify that this animal thing, so that powerful. The moment you come in the presence of these people, it enables a catalyst of multiple people then getting this. Just explain that. If you could give some clarity. It says that it is like the presence coming and the animal multiplying, something like that.
but the liberated soul extends its perception of unity horizontally as well as vertically. Vertically माने its own liberation, ठीक है? 1 second. Should I read from the beginning? नहीं, not. Okay, I'll just read this. 2-3 minutes extra लगेंगे, but that's okay. The liberation of the individual soul is therefore the keynote of the definitive divine action. What he's saying here is, it's very important and practical point, कि instead of worrying कि अपने near and dear ones, मेरे friends भी liberate हो जाएं, वो भी अध्यात्म वगैरह pursue करे, all those ideas are fine. But first of all, your own liberation has to happen. It is the liberation of the individual soul which is the keynote of the definitive divine action. जो भी divine action आपके through होना है. So first of all, one has to focus on one's own liberation. And this is not selfishness. This is the greatest wisdom. And anyway, one does not have any control over anybody else. आप खुद ही को लिबरेट कर लो, बहुत बड़ी बात है यार, किसी और को करना तो फिर दूर की बात है, isn't it? That will automatically happen when you are liberated. But first of all, what he's saying here is focus on your own liberation. Okay? It is the primary divine necessity and the pivot on which all else turns. If you are not liberated in your consciousness, basically, you are also a paradox living in this world, right? It is the point of light at which the intended complete self-manifestation in the many begins to emerge. Yeah, intended. उसके पहले तो बस ईगो के अंदर जो खेल चल रहा है वो चल रहा है, right? But the liberated soul extends its perception of unity horizontally as well as vertically. It will not be just going to higher and higher levels of consciousness, that is the vertical side, but even horizontally. उसका एक वो lateral effect होगा, so to speak. Okay, its unity with the transcendent one is incomplete without its unity with the cosmic many. And the lateral unity translates itself by a multiplication, a reproduction of its own liberated state at other points in the multiplicity. Unbelievable. Now look here, this is the sentence sort of to be carried forward from this paragraph. Very easy to remember also. The divine soul reproduces itself in similar liberated souls as the animal reproduces itself in similar bodies. Therefore, whenever even a single soul is liberated, there is a tendency to an extension and even to an outburst of the same divine self-consciousness in other individual souls of our terrestrial humanity, and who knows, perhaps even beyond the terrestrial consciousness. ये मदर ने बोला है कि perhaps beyond वाली बात करें. She said, with my incarnating in the world in a physical body, even the attitudes of the gods has changed. She speaks of a certain liberation which even Durga experienced. I will share both the quotations. उससे आपको थोड़ा आइडिया लगेगा कि even beyond the terrestrial जो gods हैं वो कैसे liberated होते हैं when a avatar gets liberated or a yogi gets liberated on earth. Okay, that's what he's saying. Where shall we fix the limit of that extension? Is it altogether a legend which says of the Buddha that as he stood blah blah, his soul turned back and took the vow never to make the irrevocable crossing so long as there was a single being upon earth undelivered from the knot of the suffering, from the bondage of the ego. See what is coming to my mind, because I've mostly read Sri Aurobindo literature. I've had darshan of other gurus and uska effect mere upar kya pada hai, I know, but it's too personal to share here on this session. But I mean, जो published है कि whoever had Mother and Sri Aurobindo's darshan, even when Sri Aurobindo had left, somebody who just had Mother's darshan, one darshan was enough, man. She would just look into your eyes, bring out the psychic being to the surface, and tuck, हो गया काम. Just one meeting was sufficient. And those who saw both of them on the darshan day together seated on that sofa, वो तो गए काम से. मतलब one darshan and that's it. Fundamental liberation happened. And so many of the disciples, I mean, I don't want to boast about the ashram here. In one letter, he writes, there are half a dozen living in the Brahman consciousness. This he writes sometime in 1936 or 1937. Brahman consciousness कोई joke है क्या? And he said, again, my point is not to boast. Excuse me if I am making that impression. He says, the ones who are here, वो इतने spiritually charged or elevated हैं, if they go outside in the world, they will become, gurus to hundreds of disciples. It's just because, I am here, that's why they are in control and they are not stopping. They are going further and further in their consciousness. So what I'm saying is कि, anyway, I mean, अच्छा, इसको हमारे को कैसे practice करना है? How is all this relevant to us? think to yourself very quietly, just read one page of Sri Aurobindo, okay, or one page of Savitri, okay, that is also Sri Aurobindo only, and try to feel what is happening in your consciousness. Are you not feeling a certain liberation? A liberation from certain depressions, certain confusions, certain ignorances, etc. वो जितना ज्यादा हम open होंगे, if we are totally open, like mother was so open, she just sat near him. In half an hour, he completely silenced her mind. Complete silence. And he didn't even apparently do anything. She just sat near him and mind hamesha ke liye silent. That's the receptivity. But, practically speaking, and it's not that Sri Aurobindo and Mother are not giving darshan to people now, they are, but utna aspiration, bhakti, prayer, receptivity hona chahiye. But short of that, certainly their books are there, Mother's music is there. So many powerful things are there as an aid for liberation.
Anmol bhai, just one point. The line that you said was the crux of what we read here. In the previous line, there is this word multiplication.
Yeah.
And if you see the power of this text, is that the moment multiplication means the one realized soul opens up 4, each of those 4 open 4, and then those 4 4. So it is a multiplier effect of an imagination that you cannot even perceive, not in the human or whatever, but even in it's saying in the spiritual realm also. It's not just in this aspect or whatever. So what I feel is that the reason I'm highlighting this is that our thought is always, it is very complicated. It is very difficult. It will take lifetimes. And as you said, that there were people who were in the presence of Mother and Sri Aurobindo.
I just should say here something.
One glimpse they could get to be in that state.
Yes. I'll just add to what you're saying, sir. So no doubt the Gita says that thousands and वो सब वो कहती है, but that is only in the 7th chapter. ठीक है? In the 12th chapter, the Bhakti Yoga, when you read what Sri Aurobindo has written, the way and the Bhakta and all, he says that okay, there is no shortcut and there is no easy way in yoga. But bhakti, the path of bhakti, relying on the divine grace, surrendering to the divine grace, there is no doubt that it makes things easier. Because then you are connecting your small limited energy to an infinite energy and grace. And वही मतलब जो नास्तिक हैं जो भगवान में बिलीव ही नहीं करते, okay, they will grow in their own way, but I don't think there is anybody who is nastic on this, at least the call. So, one should definitely, like Mother के बारे में बोलते हैं, again, it's going on and on, but in the synthesis of yoga chapter called Godward Emotions, clearly he writes कि जो मदर सोल है, जो डिवाइन मदर है, वो चाहती है कि उसके बच्चे उससे कुछ मांगे. आप अगर लेट्स से आप इस कॉल से इंस्पायर हो गए, आप श्री अरबिंदो मदर से इंस्पायर हो गए, ठीक है, एंड यू अर्नेस्टली सिंसियरली प्रे टू द मदर फॉर गिविंग यू लिबरेशन, डू यू थिंक शी इज इनकेपेबल ऑफ ग्रांटिंग यू दैट? वो यूं मिल जाएगा, पता है, लाइक दिस, depending on your inner receptivity. She is waiting कि my children should ask me for all these, spiritual riches, even material riches, whatever you will want, she will give it to you. She is waiting to give it to you. But उसके लिए वो faith होना चाहिए in the grace and in the higher things. And I went down to a slightly more superficial level. What he's talking about here, आप just, practically even that day when we had heard a chapter of the mother on this call, I think the 5th chapter, it was such a profound experience for everybody.
True. No, beautiful. So, thank you so much. Absolutely.
I'm sorry, a little thoda extended ho gaya, but I just felt that along with that paragraph, this paragraph was very appropriate to read today. True. So sorry for the extra time.
Well, I had a question which is not related to this.
Those who want to leave the call can leave. We can carry on. हाँ, बोलिए.
So these the gods हैं, they, like you mentioned many times, that they are looking to come into a human body so that they can evolve. So don't they have a soul? How are they immortal?
They are immortal in a relative and practical sense. Mane, their lifespan is very big. They are not perfectly immortal. Okay. So ब्रह्मा का जो आयु है, it is defined as कुछ वो 1 कल्पा या कुछ जो होता है, ठीक है, but वो भी जो है वो mortal है. Remember that story कि वो ब्रह्मा gets attacked by Madhu and Kaitap and he hides inside Vishnu. Why is he hiding? If he is immortal, then why is he fearing? Simple. Because he is not perfectly immortal. Perfect immortality belongs only to the Brahman. Understand this. The gods are relatively immortal. आपका 100 years का लाइफ स्पैन है, आप उसको 1 लाख से मल्टीप्लाई कर लो, एक गॉड का लाइफ स्पैन उतना होगा in terms of human years. But after that life span, he will have to give up that state and come back to earth or something. Is it clear?
Oh,
They are relatively immortal. They are not absolutely immortal.
okay.
That
So all the like Indra and all of them all have a bigger
सब
lifespan.
पदवियां हैं, हाँ. These are all just padvi. These are all just statuses.
Okay.
Yeah. They have a bigger lifespan. But you see, आप गीता पढ़ो ना. गीता में what does he say in the 8th chapter? 8th है या 9th है? 9th. कि at the time of creation they come forth from me helplessly, and at the time of dissolution all these beings are taken into myself. So what is happening? Even all those gods, they are going on to God only. All those gods, they are getting consumed into the supreme at the time of pralay. So what
even
happened to their
in the
Huh?
fourth chapter, in the first shlok, he says कि मैंने ये knowledge विवस्वान को दिया था.
Yeah.
He is one of the sun, no?
Yeah, he is Vivaswan is the sun god, yeah.
But I
That
think
might be the name of sun in one of the creations, correct?
So he was one of them.
Correct.
Okay.
Point is, they are not immortal that way.
Okay.
Taittiriya Upanishad also, if you see, I mean, again, different references, they help you to understand. So it shows the levels of Ananda, okay? 11 levels. So Manushya, then Manushya Gandharva, then Deva Gandharva, then I think kuch Ajana Jana Deva, Pitru, Karma Deva, something Indra, then Brihaspati, then Prajapati, finally the Brahman. Even Prajapati or Brahma is not the final, very clearly. गीता में भी 11th चैप्टर में गरीयसे ब्रह्मणोप्यादि कर्त्रे, यू आर गरीयस, यू आर ग्रेटर इवन देन द आदिकर्ता ब्रह्मा. व्हाई इज ही ग्रेटर? बिकॉज ही इज द ओरिजिन इवन ऑफ ब्रह्मा. दैट इज व्हाई. एंड अगेन, क्योंकि गीता का रेफरेंस है एंड इट्स अ वेरी पावरफुल एंड स्ट्रॉन्ग रेफरेंस, वेरी मतलब फंडामेंटल एंड अमेजिंग रेफरेंस. 2 या 3 जगह गीता में आता है ब्रह्म भूत. वन तो आई रिमेंबर 5.24. हाँ, 5.24. योन्तः सुखोन्तरारामः तथांतर ज्योतिरेवयः सयोगी ब्रह्म निर्वाणम ब्रह्म भूतः अधिगच्छति. यह अंतः सुखः, बता रहा हूं, यह अंतः सुखः, जिसका सुख उसके अंदर है. अंतर आरामः, जिसका मतलब सेल्फ डिलाइट वगैरह, रम धातु से आता है. रम मीन्स रमण करना, डिलाइटिंग इन योर सेल्फ. यह अंतर आरामः, जिसका आराम उसके अंदर है. यह अंतः सुखर अंतरारामः तथांतर ज्योतिरेवयः, और जिसकी इल्यूमिनेशन, जिसका लाइट उसके भीतर है. ही इज नॉट रिलाइंग ऑन एक्सटर्नल विजडम और दिस थिंग फॉर हिज लाइफ. ओके, अंतर ज्योति ही सयोगी ब्रह्म निर्वाणम. ऐसा योगी ब्रह्म निर्वाण प्राप्त करके, ब्रह्म निर्वाण माने, निर्वाण मतलब एक्सटिंक्शन. एक्सटिंक्शन किसका? ईगो का. द ईगो इज एक्सटिंग्विश्ड इन द ब्रह्मन. सयोगी ब्रह्म निर्वाणम ब्रह्म भूतः अधिगच्छति. ही बिकम्स द ब्रह्मन. ब्रह्म भूतः एक जगह आता है ब्रह्म भूयाय फॉर्म में, यू बिकम द ब्रह्मन. दैट इज व्हाट द वेदास कॉल्ड बिकमिंग इमॉर्टल. शब्द का फर्क है, बट इफ यू बिकम द ब्रह्मन, यू हैव बिकम द इमॉर्टल. ओके. एक जगह आता है ब्रह्म भूयाय कल्पते के फॉर्म में, एंड अगेन ब्रह्म भूतः प्रसन्नात्मा न शोचति न कांक्षति समः सर्वेषु भूतेषु मद भक्तिम लभते पराम. दिस कम्स टुवर्ड्स द एंड 18th चैप्टर में आता है. I'll share all the 3 references, but very clearly the point that the word I want to matlab get impressed on people, Brahma Bhuta, becoming the Brahman, that is the liberation. Becoming the immortal. और जब तक वो नहीं हुआ है, मतलब before the time comes to leave this body, okay, everybody has to become the Brahman. Otherwise the whole process has to start from scratch again. Again you go into the mother's womb, again you go to school, again you read the Gita, again you make sadhana effort. वो जब तक एक बार प्राप्त नहीं होगा तब तक वो बार बार करना ही पड़ेगा. So the sooner you do it, the better it is.
Yeah, true.
Okay, we'll close with half a minute of silence.
Yes, please.
Okay.